I missed you. How y'all doing? You good? God bless you. Love you. To those of you joining us by stream, God bless you. I don't take for granted when anybody stops their routine to make this a part of their routine. And so I'm encouraged to be in your presence, Henry. I'm encouraged to have the opportunity to fellowship with you, EB. I'm encouraged, Shonda, to just be in the glow of your spirit. I'm encouraged with you who are joining us by stream. I often heard Reverend Coleman say you get in trouble when you start calling names. But there are people watching us via the stream right now from coast to coast and from all over the globe. There is one young lady in particular I want to acknowledge. Her name is Deirdre. Deirdre, I didn't get your last name, but Deirdre is actually the great niece of the Reverend Don Ned. For those of you who may not be aware, Don Ned is the husband of the Rev.Dr. Johnny Coleman. And so his great niece is joining us from the United Kingdom. So we bless you. We love you. Everybody joining us by stream. Christ Universal Temple, help me say thank you to the Christ Universal Temple digital family. And Christ Universal Digital family, you just go ahead and type in and help me say thank you to the people right here in the room. Let's pray. As we take a moment to center ourselves, we touch, agree, and recognize the one presence, the one power, God, the good, omnipotent. This divine presence that is in this very moment, blessing each of us from the crown of our heads to the tip ends of our feet. This omniscient one that is not intimidated by the sense that we walked into this chapel with, but God knows that God's will for each of us is good and very good. And so as we commit ourselves to being in alignment with this divine truth, we give thanks as those things we no longer need fall away, and as we step up and accelerate up into this dynamic awareness that we can do what must be done in order to make our big leap. And so we prepare our minds and hearts, we prepare our listening so that we can be equipped to do just that. Amen and amen. So we are in our Making the Leap series, and the series is coming from this book by Gay Hendricks. Now, just for the record, I was watching the stream on last week when the Reverend Rod Norton asked who all had the book, and I heard him say, I'm not going to get in the middle of that, so I'm going to ask right now, if you have your book, I'm going to ask you to just hold your book and just wave it real high. I'm underwhelmed. I'm underwhelmed. You should be too, right? This is a tool, say tool, to help you design, say design, the kind of life you deserve. Now, unless you already have everything you need, then you might want to give yourself the benefit of every tool you can possibly get your hands on in order to design the kind of life you absolutely deserve. Can I get an amen? Amen. And so I just want to encourage you to, if you don't yet have the book, get the book. It's a wonderful opportunity to help us come to understand how to get beyond our upper limit problem. And I don't know your business, but here is what I know. You have an upper limit problem. I got one. You got one. The author of the book had one. And the way we can tell we have it is because we don't have all we want to have. If there were no limits, then you would already be ising in that which you've been praying for. Because the divine provision has already been made. And so if God has already done God's part, and I am not yet experiencing the full flow and glow and glory of that thing, it's not God. Y'all said that part kind of low. But it's good to know that it's you. See, here is the beautiful thing about knowing that it's you. If you know that it's you and you're not experiencing what you want to experience, if you know it's you, you don't have to blame anyone else. You can simply get yourself back on track so that you can redo it the way you want it. Is that all right? Okay. Many of you have been sharing your leap experiences with me, and I appreciate that. I'm honored with the opportunity to support you in not only making the leap, but also establishing the consciousness to help you stay in the leap. See, it's one thing to get a thing, it's another thing to know how to keep it. Is that right? And so what we want to be able to do is not just make the leap into the new experience, but to make the leap and to keep the experience that we've attracted and not find ourselves going up and down and up and down and up and down as if we were an elevator. Statement by Theodore Roosevelt. He said, we must all either wear out or rust out. Every one of us. My choice is to wear out. So today I want to just share some things with you that are critical if you intend to build a home in your zone of genius. Repeat after me. I intend to build a home in my zone of genius. I think it's important that we not only make the commitment, but we know how to do it, because see, there's something about having the right map. There's something about having the right blueprint. See, when you don't have the right map, it doesn't matter how hard you work or how fast you go or who you're with. If you have the wrong map, the likelihood that you'll get to the right place is, yeah, come on, talk to me. Talk to me. In order to get to where it is you desire to be, are you clear on where it is you desire to be? Okay. In order to get to where it is you desire to be, you need to have the right map. And the map is the result of the consciousness we have for the place we want to go. See, where it is you desire to be, you must have the awareness of that before you can get there. Are you with me? When we talk about the upper limit problem, he describes it in some other ways, but in fact, to just break it down to the bare essential of how we say it, is simply the awareness of where it is we desire to go. You cannot go to someplace you're not aware of. You cannot move into a space that you don't have the consciousness for. Are you with me? And so I just want to give you 3 things to help you get to the place where you can build this home in the zone of genius. Now, why build a home? What do we do in our homes? Yeah, that's not a trick question. Come on. Yeah. We live in our homes. Yeah? We abide in our homes, yes? We stay in our homes, yes? We lounge around in our homes, yes? We frolic in our homes, yes? Now, what if the home in this particular instance is your health? What if the home in this particular instance is your success? What if the home in this particular instance is the fulfillment of your relationships? What if the home in this instance is pocketbooks that don't run low? Are you with me? So now, do you see the value in building the home? See, if you don't have the home, you might not have a place to stay. And so without a place to stay, you might have to depend on the good mercy of someone else to let you stay in their home. But if you build it from your own consciousness, you don't have to ask anybody for anything. That's why I like to say, God bless the child that's got his own. So in order to build the consciousness, there are just a few things that I want us to know. The first thing that I want us to know is that there is a difference between a hop and a leap. And this is coming directly from Gay's text. He says there is a difference between a hop and a leap. He says a hop might be something that's a little challenging. I want to define it this way. I want to say a hop are the actions we take that help us improve ourselves. See, your being here this morning, in my estimation, is a hop. You're taking JCI classes and applying what you learn here and what you learn there is a hop. If you just graduated from high school or college or grammar school, that's a hop. If you have prepared yourself for the promotion on your job, that's a hop. If you have made yourself better in whatever way so that your relationships work in a way that works for you and the person you're in the relationships with, that's a hop. Are you with me? So a hop might be difficult, but it's not necessarily a leap. Here is what I want to encourage you to do about the hop. I want to encourage you to keep taking those hops. See, a hop helps us get better. And here's what I want you to know. We can all have more, do more, and give more because we can all become more. Are you with me? And each hop you make helps you become better. So I want you to celebrate the hops that you make and not take the hops for granted. It is a heck of a thing to go through what you go through and not take time to smell the roses. It's a heck of a thing to deal with some of the stuff you got to deal with and not just take time to enjoy the beauty of the sky. So I want to encourage you to celebrate your hops before you run to the next hop. But a hop is not a leap. A leap, put this in your notes, is the effort we make to overcome the barrier that is the upper limit problem. So a hop helps us become better. A leap helps us overcome our limitation. Are you with me? And when we overcome the barrier, then we can expand our capacity for abundance, love, and greater success. Because in the text on page 33, one of the things he says is very few people understand how the upper limit problem works. Many of us believe, and you've heard me say this before, many of us believe that we are flawed, we are not destined for greatness, and we're not good enough to deserve the dreams we want to achieve. And that is a lie. You might make mistakes, but you are not fundamentally flawed. And I don't care who says you are born in sin. I say you are born in Christ. And that which God makes new is new and new indeed. And so, yes, you might make some mistakes. People often do. But the mistake is a sign. Are you with me? It's not an indication of what you are. It's an indication of the mindset you have. So we are not fundamentally flawed even though we have flaws. Are you with me? You are destined for greatness, but you might not believe it. See, there is a such thing, Reverend Fred, as coming to accept what you have and convincing yourself that where you are is okay. There is a symptom to becoming to be willing to settle for what you already know in your soul is not good enough. We can condition ourselves because we are powerful. We can condition ourselves for lesser experiences. And so in order to make where we are okay, we have to convince ourselves that we're okay with where we are. Earlier in the text, he talked about this cognitive dissonance that we experience, this experience that we have when what we know does not match up with what we experience. And I want to say to you, every time what you experience does not match up with the truth of what you know, your challenge as a Christian metaphysician is to challenge what you see, because what you see is not necessarily based in the truth. What's based in the truth is that you are destined for success, but if you settle for less, then less you will have. Are you with me? If you're going to bring yourself into the greater experience, you must give yourself over to the call. And so I'm reminded in the Gospel of Matthew where Jesus is walking by the Sea of Galilee and he sees these two cats on the boat. That's how I like to describe them. And these two cats have their nets in the sea. And they are doing what they have learned to do. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just going about their business. They are, as a matter of fact, I would surmise, in their zone of excellence. The two guys who are in the boat are Peter and his brother Andrew. And when Jesus comes by, he notices something about them that they probably haven't noticed about themselves. See, sometimes when you're destined for success and you're born to be successful, you can be in the middle of your experience and not even know what's in the boat with you. And so Jesus, just in casually strolling by, happens to notice that these two fishermen are doing their thing. And he calls out to them, "Hey guys, I see you doing your fishing thing, but I'd like to change your direction. I'd like to change the course that you're on, and I'd like to invite you from, rather than just fishing for fish, I'd like to invite you to fish for men." And so in that instant, both Peter and Andrew went from their zone of excellence into their zone of genius. And I'm going to help you know how we see that. Are you with me? And so in order to make the leap, you have to be willing to not let your current experience determine what's possible for you. Are you with me? The other thing I want to encourage you about is the leap, about your hop. Celebrate your hops. Here's the other thing I want you to know about your hop, Kathy. A hop is better than no action. So it's important that you celebrate your hop, because a hop is better than doing nothing. See, a hop is movement. A hop is progress. A hop is the kind of thing that can keep you from thinking you want to be smaller without changing your diet. See, a hop is the kind of thing that can keep you from saying you want a better relationship or you want more money, but you're not changing your mindset and you're not learning anything new. A hop is the kind of thing that can keep you from being frustrated as the new people on the job keep surpassing you. So you want to be able to make some movement, and every hop you make is some movement. Are you with me? Say to your neighbor, tell your neighbor to stay in action. Yeah, if you got one on the other side, tell them to. You got to be willing to stay in action, because if you are not moving and you keep not moving, you'll keep getting more of what you already have. Are you with me? In order for the action of hopping forward to be effective, we have to make the hop. And here is the beautiful thing about making the hop. Every time you make the hop, it makes you no longer be in the same place. So you got to be willing to make the hop. Second thing you need to do in order to build your house in your zone of genius is you have to know the difference between your story and the truth. On page 118, let me read to you. I want to read to you. Can I read to you? On page 118 in the second paragraph, Gay Hendricks writes, if outside influences like money or insurance company or bureaucrats were not a problem, what would you really be doing? What would you really love to be doing? Then he goes on the top of page 119. He says, most people have a carefully crafted, well-justified story about why they can't take their leap. Now, if most people applies to us, that's just about everybody in your row with the exception of you. Am I right about it? He goes on to say that as I listened to their stories, I would sometimes hear the real fears emerge. There is a huge fear underneath every complaint. Watch this. If I took the big leap into my zone of genius, I might fail. He says, what if I really opened up to my true genius and found that my genius wasn't good enough? He said, better to keep the genie in the bottle and coast along in the zone of excellence. That way I don't have to risk, somebody say risk. That way I don't have to risk taking a big leap and finding that it isn't, I have in my book, not it isn't, but I am not good enough. So most of us won't do it, 1, because we're afraid, 2, because we won't take the risk, and 3, because somewhere deep down inside where the light of truth has not yet penetrated, there is a sense that I am not good enough. I bought into all of the stories, the experiences, what life has taught me about me. I've settled for believing that rather than opening myself to the truth. And it is that subconscious message that plays itself back in my life, world, and affairs. Every time I get ready to take the leap, it comes back. Before this is about the 3-year anniversary since I completed my doctorate. And while I was at Governor State pursuing my master's, my story to me was that I don't like writing. That's my story to me. I don't like writing. So much so that in order to graduate the program, you have to either do a full thesis or you have to do a partial thesis, and you can develop a training program. I'll give you one guess at which one I did. I wrote a short thesis and developed a full training program. Now, Doc, when I wanted to go back to school for the doctoral program, I had a dilemma because there was no option in this program for writing a lesser project. And so the only option was to write a full dissertation. That's my dilemma. My story, the requirement, and now what will I do? Can I tell you what I did? I remembered the truth that you taught me. And I reconditioned the story so that I stopped saying to myself, I don't like to write. I don't like to write. I don't like to write. And I just changed a couple words. I changed the words and just make it like this. I love to write. 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 With every assignment that I had, I would say to myself, I love to write. I love to write. I love writing. I would remix it. Instead of saying I love to write, I would say I love writing. I would remix it. Here was the result of challenging the story so that I could get the result I wanted. I was able to produce, with much effort and much reconditioning, I was able to produce an award-winning dissertation, the first African American to get that award in the history of that doctoral program. And I'm saying that to say the story was just that. It was just smoke that I had been selling myself because I didn't like the technical part of writing. I didn't want to get clear about what it was I wanted to say. I wanted to just be able to talk because I can talk. Are you with me? And so I just want to encourage you to challenge the story because your story is not the truth. I want to encourage you to not settle for your story because your story is a part of the lens that is limiting what you see. It's like looking through a peephole expecting to see the whole panoramic view, but your story will only give you that which is consistent with the maintenance of it. Are you with me? And so you got to know the difference between your story and the truth. In the textbook, Gay talks about this woman named Nancy. You remember Nancy? You are familiar with Nancy? Nancy was also a writer. She had actually produced a mystery novel. And Nancy was having some challenges with writing, and so she met with Gay, and as they were meeting, one of the things that they talked about is what was keeping Nancy from writing? What story was she telling herself that was keeping her from making her leap? Nancy had convinced herself that she must first care for her family. She must second take care of the needs of the home and the infrastructure to make the home run well. And then last but not least, she could get to her writing. But what Gay Hendricks challenged her on was this idea that her writing was a priority. He said he laid those priorities out for her, and when he presented that writing was the last priority, she bumped up against that. No, I'm much more passionate about writing. He said, well, not based upon what you're doing, right? You have to not deceive yourself about what your story is producing compared to what it is you say you want. And so when he laid it out for her, and it's laid out in front of her, laid bare, what they discovered was that, one, she had a fear that if she committed herself to writing, it would come at the expense and care of her family. Now, if you've ever worked, you know you can work a full-time job and not skimp at all on what your family gets. Am I the only one who knows that? Don't leave me up here by myself then. Can you? No. Better yet, did you? Well, act like I'm talking to the right people. Dude, I've only been gone 1 week. Y'all better stop playing. Right? But here is the other thing that emerged. Nancy had 3 sisters. And when Nancy wrote her first book, only one sister wanted to celebrate that accomplishment. The other 2 sisters resented the work. And so Nancy was dimming her light so that she could maintain the relationships with her sisters. Now, how many of us are dimming the brilliance of what we know God has called us to do just to be okay with walking with people who might not walk with you whether you do it or not anyway? Let me give you something real quick on how to help yourself whenever you find yourself in your story. Just 3 things. Put these in your notes. First thing I want you to do whenever you find yourself in the midst of the story, first thing I want you to do is distract yourself. Second thing I want you to do is disrupt the story. Last thing I want you to do is distance yourself from the story. When Jesus came and saw Peter and Andrew on the boat, the first thing that he did was he called them, he distracted them from the thing that they were engaged in. The second thing that he did was he disrupted their flow. They were content to have their nets in the water just waiting for fish to come. But he said, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. The last thing he did was he distanced them from the activity that they were involved in. If you're going to transform your story and live in your zone of genius and build a house in your zone of genius, you might have to distance yourself from some activities. You might have to distance yourself from some people. You might have to distance yourself from some behaviors. You might have to distance yourself from some habits. You might have to distance yourself from those things that keep you out of your zone of genius. There is a reason why eagles and pigeons don't fly together. They don't have the same focus. They don't have the same outcome. They're not going to the same places. They don't flow in the same altitude. So you might have to be willing to distance yourself from those things that are not consistent with your zone of genius. Maybe they will see what you've done and be inspired. Maybe they'll see what you've done and just hate. Either way, neither reason is good enough for you to not build the home in your zone of genius. Last but not least, we have to know the difference between the purpose and your process. You have to know the difference between your purpose and your process. Nathaniel Braden said that to live without purpose is to live at the mercy of chance. And Reverend Norton helped us see on last week that our zone of genius is equal to the purpose we have. Are you with me? Here, let me say it to you plainly. Whenever you are operating in your purpose, you are operating in your zone of genius. And so for those of us who have long suspected that there was more to life than what we were engaged in, I want to confirm your suspicions. For those of you who have been concerned and confused about whether or not there was something more for you, I want to let you know that there is something more, but you have to find your purpose. But 98% of people never seek to become clear about why it is they're here. This time, if you look in the row, that's almost everybody. If you intend to build the home, build the house in your zone of genius, you want to do it in sync with your purpose. When you align yourself with the reason that God called you forth. See, there was a reason that Jesus called Peter and Andrew. There was a reason that you were born. You are not a mistake. You are not here by chance. You are here for a very definite purpose. And that purpose is to grow into a mountain, not shrink into a grain of sand. Right now, hear me. Right now, people are dying trying to climb Mount Everest. And watch this. George Mallory was believed to be the first person who ever climbed Mount Everest. And he did it in the 1920s. He was killed in his third attempt in 1924. His body was found in 1999, preserved by the ice and the snow. But watch this. Even in death, George Mallory never gave up. They say his body was found face down on a rocky slope. His head was toward the summit. His arms were extended high over his head. His toes were buried into the mountainside. His fingers dug into the loose rock, refusing to let go even as he drew his last breath. They said there was a short length of cotton rope that was broken that was looped around his waist. Before he made his transition, they asked him, Mr. Mallory, what is the purpose of climbing Mount Everest? And I want to read his answer to you directly, if that's okay. He said, the first question which you will ask, and which I must truly answer, is this: what is the use of climbing Mount Everest? And he says, my answer must at once be, it is of no use. There is not the slightest prospect of any gain whatsoever. Oh, we may learn a little about the behavior of the human body at high altitudes. And possibly medical men may turn our observation to some account for the purposes of aviation. But otherwise, nothing will come out. We shall not bring back a single bit of gold or silver, not a gem, nor a coal or iron. We shall not find a single tooth of earth that can be planted with crops to raise food. It's of no use. But if you cannot understand that there is something in humankind which responds to the challenge of a mountain and goes out to meet the challenge and the struggle, even if it means the end of life itself, then you won't see why we go. If you don't understand that there is something in you that is calling you to a greater purpose, then you will sit idly by and let life happen all around you. But here is my prayer for you. Before life comes calling its end, I pray that it will find you in the flow of your purpose and climbing new mountains rather than sliding down old ones. God bless you.